Welcome to Deep Dive, everyone. I'm Steve Hilton, and this is the home of smart conversation on the big issues. Today, we're going to be talking about climate change. The reason we're doing that is one of my guests today writes about it regularly in the Wall Street Journal. You'll meet him in a second. I love his approach to it. One of the themes that he constantly highlights is the fact, in his view, his argument, that the discussion around climate change, the political conversation, and especially the policy solutions that we're seeing increasingly from the left on climate change are completely divorced from reality, wouldn't make any difference, and would cause a lot of harm along the way. So that's what we're going to be getting into. Huge topic, big political factor in the elections, particularly on the Democrat side, where climate change, the climate crisis, as they now call it, is a big theme for many voters in that primary. So let's meet our guest. Gregory Wrightstone is a self-described climate contrarian. We like contrarians here. He's a geologist with over 35 years of experience and the author of Inconvenient Facts, the science that Al Gore doesn't want you to know. Nomiki Konst is the host of the Nomiki Show, as well as a former national surrogate for Bernie Sanders. Bernie, of course, big supporter of the Green New Deal. And Holman Jenkins is a member of the Wall Street Journal's editorial board, and he's the author of the article that sparked today's discussion, How the Media Corrupted Climate Policy.
Yeah, the one big thing we haven't talked about here, what if the United States reduced 100% of its coal-fired emissions, all the CO2 that we're doing right now from fossil fuels? What would that do? According to the EPA's own calculations, we would avert 0.04 of a degree centigrade by the year 2050. 0.04 of a degree is all we would avert in warming due to that. How many jobs is that lost?
Right.
Is that worth? And the other thing is, there's three big players in the market: President-in-Chief in China, Prime Minister Modi in India, and President Donald Trump. All of them agree and understand that you need abundant, reliable, low-cost energy to have a vibrant...
Those are great advocates for climate change.
This is one of the arguments made against the Paris Accord, which is that, well, even if you did it, the actual emissions reduction, temperature reduction by the end of the century as a result of the agreements that you commit to is tiny. So why go through all this economic disruption to achieve a negligible impact on climate?
I think this is why the left, and not the centrist Democrats, the left has really been pushing for the Green New Deal because it is true. We've been negotiating from a moderate standpoint with the far right and not really discussing what it would take to solve an economic issue, to invest. I mean, but in terms of the Green New Deal, the Green New Deal is essentially a jobs plan, just as we faced during, World War II, during World War II and after World War II.
Do you agree with the carbon tax?
Oh, absolutely not. I don't think again, I see an Earth that's thriving and prospering, and we don't really need this. And if you think that China, if you really believe that China and India are going to reduce their carbon dioxide emissions over the next 20 or 30 years, you're sadly mistaken. China's plan right now is to increase coal-fired electricity generation so much to replace 100% of the Americas. And India's main goal is to electrify the entire nation. Prime Minister Modi wants to lift 600 million people up out of generational poverty. And he believes that he wants to use all of his resources.
And it could be the case that actually the really alarmist language is turning people off, and that actually a more optimistic, hopeful message might be more effective in persuading people.
And isn't it what we're talking about, this media-driven narrative of an Earth that's plunging, we're standing on the edge of this precipice. If we release any more carbon dioxide, we're going to take our step into this precipice with one climate apocalypse event after another. Floods, droughts, fires, increasing toenail fungus, and that's one they've actually said. And we just don't see it. We've heard some just things that have not been correct about the alarmist agenda. If we look in California, where you're from, according to CAL FIRE, you might be shocked about this, the number of fires in California has declined by almost 50% in the last 30 years. The area burned has increased. And we see the same thing. We see this narrative.
Deforestation.
That's right.
So when there are no more forests, you can't have fires in forests.
we saw it in the UN biodiversity report last month, 2 months ago, where they reported 1 million new extinctions happening per year. I went back and researched that myself and looked at the same data. Instead of it alarming extinctions going forward, their chart showed it going way off. Extinctions, you want the extinctions, you need 25,000 to 30,000 extinctions per year to get to that number. You know what it's been for the last 40 years? Two per year, not 2,000, not 200. What the big story of that report should have been, we're doing a really, really good job protecting our endangered species, not the world is plunging into the next sixth extinction event.
So if all this were true, then I would ask why insurance companies, whether it's home ownership or life insurance, why are, or whether it's, the insurance to build high-rises in South Miami Beach, why are they seeing climate change as a crisis? When big business realizes that climate change, whether it's increased flooding in South Miami Beach or in Louisiana or in Puerto Rico, for instance.
There are 3 new resort complexes being built in the Maldives, which the UN has labeled the most at-risk island nations.
Yeah, so that's
They're funded and
great
insured by insurance companies.
Okay, last quick thoughts.
This ought to be a science-based discussion, and so much of the science from the skeptical side has been, in fact, all of it has been excluded. Thank God for Donald Trump. He's at least getting some people out there that have an opposition viewpoint that is science and fact-based, which is what I bring.
Okay, Namiki?
We have to keep in mind here, but that the science that is basically burying your heads in the sand and pretending that climate change doesn't exist is being funded by the oil and gas company, which is making record profits to this date, to this moment, off of exacerbating climate change. If we want to actually solve this problem, we can't be pretending that climate change doesn't exist. We have to go to places where, there are plenty of communities across this country. You're a Republican, you're a Democrat, it doesn't matter what you are facing consequences of climate change, whether it's Arizona or California or Puerto Rico or you're in Tornado Alley or the Great Lake region. Floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, they all cost people money.